Hey everyone, this is Javert Valbar here for inScapeDigital.com. Today we're going to be taking a look at how I created some of the effects in my Doctor Who Regeneration VFX short. If you haven't seen that already, check out the link in the description below. The first effect I'll be showing you how to do is the glow on the hands. It was important that this looked good because it was a close-up shot, and it was the first real visual effect you see in the short. The first step is to track your actor's hands. I created a point for each hand, then created a new tracker. I'll just use a single point track on his finger here, and get as much of it automatically tracked as I can. It goes out of frame at the end here, but that's okay. I'll apply the track to the point I've named left hand. Then I'll go back to the viewer and manually move the point for the first second, where the finger goes out of frame. You can press the comma key on your keyboard to move back a single frame, and press the period key to move forward. The process for the right hand was exactly the same, so to save time I'm going to skip that and move on to the design of the glow. My base layer was an orange plane, which I first centered over the center for each hand, then parented to the point. Now the plane follows the movement of the hand, and I'll create a mask to fit the shape. Let's feather and round this out and set the blend mode to add. Now I want the glow to fade in over time, so I'll set the opacity to 0% and hit the keyframe button for that attribute. Then I'll move the timeline forward and increase it until it looks good. Like the tracking, the process for the right hand glow is pretty much the same. The only thing I did different was create a custom shape to fit the hand. And now we have a problem with this bunny design on the mirror. Technically, the glow should be behind it. So instead of masking by hand, I'm going to right-click my footage and select Open in Mocha Hit Film. I do have a tutorial for masking in Mocha, so if you miss anything here, check it out. But the process is pretty straightforward. I'll find the spot I want to mask and use the X-Spline tool to draw my shape. Remember to set your in and out points for your footage. Then I'll hit the track forward button. In this case, Mocha did a great job of keeping track of the shape. When it's done, I'll go to File, Export Shape Data, and hit Save. It'll export as a hit film composite shot, which you will then import into your project. Trim the video to the masked portion, and copy the mask data into your other composite, on a duplicate of your original footage. Now the mask is just like any other. We can adjust the feather and roundness to fit. Alright, let's add some texture to our glow by creating a black plane and adding the fractal noise effect onto it. Change the type to swirl and set the plane's blending mode to add. Now I'm going to copy both masks from each of the glows we created earlier, and paste them both onto the fractal layer. I need to reposition them so that they're over the hands, and then I'll parent the fractal layer to point data of one of the hands. Over here under the appearance settings, I'm going to change the second color to the orange we've been using. Raising the exposure and lowering the offset changes the contrast of the noise, making the swirls more visible. To make the noise move throughout your shot, move your timeline to the beginning and activate keyframes for the seed property. Then move to the end and move it up. Keep in mind that a higher number will result in faster movement. Remember to move this layer below the bunny mask. The next step is to create some environment lighting, because in the real world, if your hands become a light source, your face and body will become a bit brighter. To start, let's make a grade layer and create a mask around where we want the light to show. We'll use the curves effect to change the color by lowering the reds and raising the green channel slightly, then adding contrast in the RGB channel. Overall, this is a subtle effect, but without it the shot would not be as convincing. I keyframe the grade's opacity to fade in as the scene unfolded. The last thing we're going to do for this shot is add the auto volumetrics effect to a grade on top. Under light falloff, I'll shorten the length of the rays. Turn up threshold and keyframe the exposure to reveal the effect gradually. Then under colorize, I'll turn up the amount and change the color to a pale yellow-orange. I used the techniques I just covered for most all of the shots where Austin's hands were visible. But now let's move on to the main effect, the regeneration. This effect took about 1 day to set up, but another 4 to look the way I wanted. So instead of creating the simulation here now for you, I'll show the actual simulation I used. I will be demonstrating how to create the Shockwave in full as well as the color grading, but for the actual particle simulation, I'll just go over the basics. The first thing I did was create 3 points, one for the head and one for each hand. I then tracked them using the same technique as the shot in the mirror. I've turned off most of the layers here. The first I'll show you is the particle simulator. This left one here is completely deactivated, so I can go layer by layer to demonstrate how it is made up. Here you can see I have 7 emitters within the particle simulator effect. The ones labeled streams are the regeneration energy that shoot off screen. This left-hand emitter has been set to a circle shape positioned over the respective point, and the trajectory is set to explode. Within this emitter alone, there are 3 particle systems. The first is a smoke layer to provide background coverage, and that texture is the Shockwave ripple trail. Next, I have a Shockwave plasma band layer for some more detail, and finally a plasma layer that is the Aurora Borealis texture. So the purpose of these 3 emitters are to give the impression that energy is still emanating from the Doctor, in all directions even as the regeneration takes place. I duplicated this emitter 2 more times and placed them at the head point and the right hand point. You can change the seed value to get a different look for each simulation. Now on to the actual regeneration streams. I had an emitter for each that I set the shape to point and the trajectory to cone. Like before, each emitter has 3 particle systems. The first is background smoke, which is lightly colored and is only used to fill in the spots that the other 2 systems miss. Then I'll have a Fire Ferocity 3 system and an Aurora Borealis simulation. Set all of these systems to the Add Blend mode under Appearance. Coloring each individual simulation can take some work. I recommend using light desaturated colors for each. A problem I've seen with many Doctor Who regenerations is the entire particle simulation ends up being a flat yellow color, which doesn't look too good. Also be sure to turn on motion blur because that can make a really big difference. Under the Fire System's appearance variation, I turned up the texture angle per second property so that each particle would spin out of frame. Select the particle system and go to the Lifetime tab. Select Alpha and choose Gradient. Adjusting the slider from black to white to black will make the particles fade in as they are born and fade out as they die, creating a smoother effect. So we can still see the hand here in our video. All I did to cover that up was create a plane set to add and use a feathered circle mask. Now let's quickly cover the Ember Particles. Those were a point shape with a random trajectory. I set the speed to 3000 and the scale to 78. I used one of the Ember variation textures under the Appearance. Right now they don't look too bright, but once you turn on motion blur they look good. I had another plane with 3 lightning and electricity effects. Each had the start point parented to the others I tracked earlier. I added some angle blur to help it blend better. Next up, the lens flares were built up of several elements and had a keyframed intensity to increase when the initial regeneration took place. As with the other shot, I had to do some environment lighting on the clothes. Again, this was a grade with curves and a mask on it. There were some effects on the particle simulation itself. These included glow, lens dirt, and curves to bring back some of the orange-red color around the edges. Finally, there was color correction over the whole short. I added a bleach bypass effect, a color balance to boost the blue tint in the shadows, and film grain. And now we've arrived at the Shockwave part of the tutorial. I've created a new composite shot here so that there isn't too much going on. I'll start by creating a new grade and making it bigger than the frame, since the mask we'll be drawing will go off screen. So I'm going to go to the frame where I want the Shockwave to be near its midpoint, and I'll use the ellipse mask to draw a circle there. Now under Controls I'll keyframe the path. Head to the frame I want the wave to start, and shrink the mask down. Then I'll head to the frame I want the wave to end, and increase the size of the mask. Go into the opacity of the grade itself, and keyframe it to smoothly transition in and out. Now duplicate the mask you made and decrease the expansion under Shape. I'll add a curves adjustment so you can see what it looks like. Set the second mask to subtract, and now you can see that we have a sort of ring pulse emanating from the center. You can adjust the expansion of the second mask to your liking, and remember to feather both edges. Let's turn off the curves for now and add a displacement effect. I'll set both the horizontal and vertical to luminance, and adjust the sliders. This shouldn't be an extremely obvious effect. It was important that the displacement was subtle so as to avoid weird looking pixels. Next, I'll add a fractal noise effect to it, and keyframe the seed so that it has some movement. Under Appearance, I'll set the second color to a light blue, and the blending mode to Add. You can increase the contrast by lowering the offset and increasing the exposure. Back here in the final composition, the Shockwave looks a little different, surrounded by other color and light sources, but that is just tweaking that takes place after the base effect has been set up. And that's how I did the major effects for my Doctor Who Regeneration short. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and visit my website, inScapeDigital.com, where I'll be posting the project files so you can practice these effects on your own. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.